Hey guys, I'm starting to take a closer look at the Zenith porthole set that I recently picked up at the Early Television Museum convention. I'd actually arranged for this deal before the convention even happened, so it was not part of the auction or anything like that. I got it from another collector. Anyway, I had incorrectly identified earlier as a Broadmoor. I believe it is actually a Waldorf. We'll know more when I look this up. Now that I took the cover off the back, I can see it's a model 28T962-R. I can look that up in the service info and find out exactly what I've got. And looking down here, we have the complete label. So it is a chassis 28F20, which is the same as the blonde set I started working on. But this has a bonus. Look at the CRT. 12 KP4 or 12 LP4 or 10 FP4 or 10 BP4. I won the lottery if it's as good as it's a KP4. Why do you want a KP4? Because it's aluminized versus the LP4, which is the run-of-the-mill common 12-inch CRT. They're physically identical, electrically compatible, but the KP4 being aluminized has a better picture. Notice there is no ion trap magnet. You don't need one, which is another bonus. However, all is not good, as I've been starting to take this apart so I can lighten the load to bring it inside. That Flyback doesn't look right. I got to compare this to my other 28F20 chassis. One, I thought this had a cover over the Flyback. Two, the way it's mounted looks wrong. However, that does look like a Zenith part number on the bracket there. So I'm not sure yet what exactly is going on. It could be somebody took the cover off and was doing some work and just retired it as is. I don't know. But one way or another, we'll get it sorted out. It does have a number of original Zenith tubes, and if you just saw my presentation recently, I was talking about the one on the RR359, talking about the evolution of tubes, and I mentioned tubes like the 1851 and 1852, and there is the 1852, also known as the 6AC7, which was used a lot in early sets. Moving on, it looks like we have some other original tubes, like the horizontal output tube, 839 to be the 39th week of 1948. Probably Zenith branded on the other side of the tube, but we can't see. And the damper tube next to it, the 5V4, is very clearly a Zenith. Just took the power supply out, which also has both Zenith tubes in there. Let's take a peek underneath, and Jupiter is also very excited to see what's going on. The last few of these I looked at when I looked underneath the power supply, the caps had vented. So let's see if this one is any different. In particular, that guy usually vented, but no. Huh, these are all pristine. Well, that's nice to see. But clearly the set's been serviced. So as nice as it looks cosmetically, somebody's been in here tinkering around with it. Kind of an odd high voltage connector too. Clearly predates when they put a rubber boot over them. I really wanted to get this set inside, so I pulled the chassis and the cabinets up in the living room in a nice spot, and I brought the chassis down to the workshop. Now, the last thing in the world I should be doing is starting a new project right now. And I'm not saying I'm going to, but I am mildly considering it only because this chassis is really fresh on my mind, and it should look familiar to you guys if you've been watching my videos, because it's essentially the same as the chassis in the Stratosphere and the blonde Waldorf, I think it's called, that I started on a while ago. That kind of started this whole porthole craze. They're just different cabinet styles and different CRT configurations. So the Stratosphere had the metal cone 16 EP4. This has a glass CRT, obviously. It looked a little odd, different to me at first because it's missing that sheet metal cover that should go over this. Now, if I was going to be missing a high voltage cover, this would be the set to be missing, and it's really, really basic. It's just a bent piece of metal that curves over this. I believe it goes in that screw hole, and one over there. Boy, these are loose. Maybe calling this Stratosphere. This one was just, the cover was just busted off. And these are two over there loose, which makes me wonder, did somebody grab the chassis by these at some point? Because it has had servicing. Here's the Flyback. So I looked at some reference photos, and it's certainly crooked from how it should be mounted originally, and that is a Zenith part number. But I don't know if it's the original or not. It's certainly seen better days. This is a candidate for soaking in paint thinner to melt off the coating and recoating it with poly. So we may do that. What I'm getting at is this might be the original Flyback, and somebody was tinkering around with it, and it just didn't get remounted properly, or it got knocked out of position. I'm trying to figure out, why is it crooked? Looks like there's a metal pin that sticks up down there, and there's a hole on that side. I wonder if it just needs to be loosened up, rotated, and dropped down. Like somebody had unmounted it to do some tinkering and didn't remount it properly, is what I'm getting at. Anyways, let's tip this thing on its side and see what's what. I'm also checking out the tubes. So far, every single tube I've gotten a good look at has been a Zenith branded tube, which is pretty cool, I think. And the CRT is also, it's a Rowland, which Zenith bought out. So it's possible it's the original CRT. So what I want to do now, take a look underneath the chassis, assess the situation, and test the picture tube. Fine tuning cord is broken, or no, that's the contrast. Fine tuning is intact. They're both pretty simple. It's just a single, just the length of string going between two pulleys. So if I need to repair it, not a big deal. And it looks just like with the Stratosphere. It's all here. Oh no, this one did definitely break. Okay, pretty obvious where it broke right there. I do have some replacement string. We can deal with that. But I'll tell you, if you ever work on or have to move one of these chassis, be careful because there's not much to grab onto. I can see where those coils get broken off. Definitely this is a good place to get your hand underneath. But on the other side, it's a little bit trickier. Anyways, whole mess of bumblebees. Very, very little work, if any, has been done. Oh, we have one new power resistor. Other than that, looking pretty pristine. And the remaining power resistors are in miserable condition as always, with the coating falling off and corrosion setting in. I bet they are all open. That one might be replaced too. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yeah, and then the chassis mounted one, yep, they're all accounted for. Alright, definitely a restoration candidate. Alrighty, let's test that picture tube. Use my trusty B&K 440. And here we go. Filament's lighting up. Always a good thing. I would expect this is going to be more than a little tired, so it'll take a while to come up. Alright, G1 light coming online, G2 light coming online. Excellent. And emissions, weak, but totally what I expected to see. Should slowly climb up. Let's see if the cutoff control. Yep, we have cutoff control. Excellent. Alrighty, I'll let this sit for 10-15 minutes and see where we end up. It's been about 10 minutes or so. Now, I know this tester well, and I know it's on the conservative side. It probably needs a little bit of tweaking. And yes, we are still in the red, but this pitch tube will work just fine. Maybe a little auto restore and a Sencor CR70 is in order. But for now, I'm just going to leave it alone. I will do a little bit of cleaning. I already started doing some around here. Should clean up beautifully, no corrosion, just a lot of dust. And I'll continue poking around. I want to compare it to some other chassis and see if that's the right part number and how this should be mounted. And we'll go from there. Well, I really wasn't expecting the porthole party to extend into mid-2026. However, this chassis is essentially identical to the Stratosphere I was just working on, and it's really fresh in my mind. So it seems like it'd be a really good idea to dive right into this. So that's what I'm going to do. Now also, just like with that chassis, just going to give you the highlights. So I'm going to dive into working on this. It's essentially all original. One replaced power resistor here. That might be a replacement, but I believe the rest of it is all original. I've got the Sam's Photo Fact. I've got the riders. All is in good hands. Now, I'm going to try to do something a little bit different with this, which is to get a little more organized before I start. Typically, when I work on these, I don't assemble any parts beforehand, or maybe if there's some oddball ones I note from the parts list or from reviewing the chassis, I'll have to special order those. But generally speaking, I keep all these common parts on hand, like a 0.0 or 0.1 microfarad 600 volt cap, 0.022, 0.033. I have parts organized right next to my workbench. So typically when I'm working on this, I clip out a part, I go over here, I select the replacement, I install it. I clip the next part out of the chassis, I go over here, I find the replacement part, I go back to working on the chassis. But this time, I'm going to get all the parts I need pre-assembled. So I've already got all the electrolytics. I already had most of the power resistors on hand. I ordered up the few that I needed. Now, in the same vein, I'm looking ahead to working on the Philco 48-1000, which I pulled the chassis on a couple weeks ago to review that, see what condition it's in, and did the same deal with this. I checked to see what am I going to need, and I identified some of the more unusual parts I didn't have on hand, and I placed an order with Mauser Electronics. That's what I want to talk about for a moment. I also did order up some more of the CE manufacturing twist lock electrolytics. I was a little on the fence about using them with that set because some of the twist locks are a smaller diameter, which they do not make, but the three main power supply caps, I was able to find pretty close matches, in this case an identical match to what was in there originally, so I went ahead and ordered up 3 of them. We'll talk more about that as that project commences. But I'm always trying to stay several steps ahead, especially when I order parts, because, well, it's nice. You take time to order parts. It's nice to get a break on quantity and combined shipping and stuff like that. So I also replenished a lot of my stocks on resistors that were getting low. So I got a whole mess of those nice Vichy resistors I like to use, the PR01, 02, 03 type, and the few axial electrolytics I didn't have on hand to finish this guy off. So I should have every part I need to get this guy going. Now, as far as the Flyback goes, I have some interesting news on that. So yes, it is definitely not the original. However, it's about as good as it gets for not being the original. I'll show you what I mean up on my desk. I want to clarify, these CE manufacturing twist locks I ordered are for an upcoming Philco project, not this set. I wanted to order some of these for this set. There are 3 twist lock capacitors on these Zenith porthole sets that are rather difficult to get at. They're underneath the CRT neck. So the technique of leaving them in place and cutting them open really doesn't work on this. Not without a lot of disassembly. Not a lot of good places to mount terminal strips underneath here. So I would have liked to have just gotten some of these that would drop in and replace these. They just do not carry the right combination of capacitance and voltage to replace any of these, so I wasn't able to. So I'll do what I did for the Stratosphere chassis, which is to leave these in place, disconnect them, and scatter the new caps around underneath as best I can. Alright, here's a photo of the top side of this chassis. Now I looked up the part number in the Sam's Photo Fact and it lists S-15015. Clearly that's not what this is. This is S-17669. However, that is the right format for a Zenith part number. So I then did the most straightforward thing you can do and I Googled S-17669. And I got the usual AI overview kind of info. And they mentioned, hey, you can often track down parts like this on eBay. So, all right, let's go to eBay and go into the advanced search where you can search for items that have already sold, because I didn't see any that were currently for sale. And we can choose completed items and we can do a search. And hey, there's one. Somebody apparently paid 89 bucks for it, but you know, if you need one, you pay what they ask if you want to get it. Bad enough. So I clicked on that. I went to original listing. Okay, cool, yeah, so I can see mine doesn't look like that anymore, but when it was new, okay, probably looked something like that. But this seller included photos of all the documentation. And hey, there is my part number, S-15015. So, and if you read through this, this transformer will replace any of the following transformers used in blah blah. And if you go to the next page, there, 28F20, and they list a few chassis, which includes the chassis that I'm working on. So this was a Zenith factory replacement part for a number of these early porthole sets. So this is the official Zenith replacement part for the original part. So it is an OEM replacement. So it should most definitely work fine in this set. We just have to hope it's still good. The coating is fallen away and looks really crummy. So I think I'll try to get the set working with it just as is, won't touch it. But if the set's working, I have a few choices. I could just leave it as is, but if this falls away, you can start getting corona arcing to the metal nearby. I could paint it over with some super corona dope or insulating varnish. But I think what I'll do is what I did on another set recently, which is to unmount this, disconnect all the wires, and submerge it in mineral spirits paint thinner, which will do a lovely job of dissolving this old waxy coating. And then I'll recoat it in polyurethane. I showed that technique a while ago. It worked out beautifully. I'm going to leave off here for now, and I'm going to get to recapping, and we will resume when either I find something worth talking about or we're ready for a first power-up. That's it for now. Thanks for watching.